the purpose of business? Many of you are going to go into business, probably. What's business for? What's the purpose? Yeah. So this is the first answer people normally come up with, right? The business is about making money. I used to think that. I don't think that anymore. I think a little differently around that now. Actually, it doesn't make sense when you think about it. Think about your favorite candy or your favorite biscuit or something. There's many ways to make money. The company who makes your favorite product could decide tomorrow, well, if my purpose is to make money, why don't I just stick my money in the bank and I'll stop doing all this difficult stuff about making products and services and sending them to market and selling them to you and marketing. I'll forget all of that. Let's not bother doing it. I'll just make some money. I'll invest in somebody else. Who loses? You lose, right? Because you don't get your favorite product, your favorite service, your favorite candy anymore. Businesses have to make money. The reason businesses exist is to do something for us, to fulfill some kind of human need that we all have. This is one of the most famous ones, right? Walt Disney doesn't talk about, we're here to make money. They say, we're here to make you happy. Now, of course, they make money at the same time, so that's great. But their purpose is to make you happy. The question is, what would our purpose be? Because remember, paint is this boring stuff we put on the walls, right? So our purpose as a business, as we see it, is actually this. That's how we talk about ourselves, not as a paint company, but a company whose role is to help all of you add color to your lives, particularly, of course, in your homes on the inside and the outside, and various things. Okay, fine. So let's say that's true. What's the problem? Waste. That's a problem. Pollution. This is a problem. Deforestation. That's a problem. Water. This is a problem. Global warming. And this is a problem. Poverty as well in many parts of the world. And with it, disease, illness, and other things that go with it. Now, if you have any big problems, your first question is, who's responsible? Whose fault was that? Whose fault was it? Okay, let me start. It's ours. Business created most of this. Right? By the way we do business, we've created most of those problems. Those problems didn't exist before the Industrial Revolution. They only existed in the last 200 years, and they're getting worse as well. Who else created those problems? It's not just me, you know. Share the blame a little bit around. Who else? You guys do it as well. By what you buy and what you use, how you choose to spend your time. You also are part of that. You could argue that the governments could have done more or less to help us, but in the end, it's our commercial society that has created most of these issues for us. But the good news is, if we created the problems, we're also the right people to solve the problems, with the help of government, with the help of NGOs. But the real way we're going to change it is if we start changing products and services, what we use, what we do every day. And of course, we can't save the world, but we can do what we can do in our products and services. And that's the way we try to approach it. How do you make sure your products have a minimum environmental impact, right? So in being made, in being used, how do you reduce their footprint on the earth? I'll just take, as an example, paint has two things, really, which you look at. One is the embodied carbon in the product, which I'll talk about in a moment. And the other is this thing, which is becoming a term that people know a bit more about. VOCs, it's called. Volatile Organic Compounds. Two problems with VOCs. One, they're not very good for you and me from a human health perspective. Secondly, it's a greenhouse gas. Most of these are greenhouse gases and have many times the effect of CO2. So even though they're in relatively small concentrations, they can collectively have quite a large effect. So we have to get those out of the product. Now, a bit like lead and mercury, all these things are generally in there for a good reason. So you've got some serious R&D work to figure out how the paint still works with taking this stuff out. What we find very helpful, and I think it's helpful for consumers to know, that if you now want to say, well, I want a product that indeed doesn't have VOCs in it, then there are easy ways to find out. And things like the Singapore Green Label is an excellent way that that is done in the industry here. So standards set by, in this case, a government body. It's a testing-based environment. We have to submit our products every year to be tested and said, yes, they passed a limit on which we can say it's near zero. Very hard to say zero because things get picked up from the environment. And interestingly enough, and it fits into some of the work of the government and URA, is that if you want to be a green mark building, one way you can do it and get some points towards it is use low VOC paints. So that's a way of encouraging also developers and the industry to adopt a better product. The other one is the carbon footprint. So every product has a carbon footprint, and to know what to do with it, you've got to know where it comes from. Okay, so basically paint is a few big ingredients. Titanium dioxide is one of them. That's what makes it white. Latex is another one. That's what makes it stick to the wall. Pigment is another one. That's what makes it colorful. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you put in it as well. All of those raw materials have embodied carbon in them. So you imagine titanium dioxide. Some of you will know it's dug out of the ground. It's the only way you get it. And it has to go through a chemical cleaning process to make it available for us as a raw material. All of that takes energy. All of that takes embodied carbon. Even though it's small, the first thing to do is do what you can. So we do a lot of work to try and reduce the carbon that's embodied during the manufacturing process. All our sites are sustainable water now, so there's or any water that's taken from the environment is returned in as good a state as it came. We do work on zero waste and on energy. First of all, you can optimize your products. You can formulate them a bit more cleverly, so use a bit less of this and a bit more of that, and that reduces the carbon footprint. More importantly, we have to persuade our suppliers to change the way they're doing things. We have to say, okay, guys, let's look at your processes and decide how we can take carbon out of that. At the minute, we don't put carbon measures on our suppliers, but that will come fairly soon, where they will have to declare the embodied carbon in their raw materials. But lastly, we need new technology. Sooner or later, we need to say there's only so much we can optimize. We need new stuff. And that's where we need R&D to work on some breakthrough things, to say how do we make paint without certain ingredients. And then we've got to persuade you guys to do something different. Of course, we've got to formulate products that say to you, use this one because it's better. We've got to do actually a lot of product marketing to make people aware that there is an alternative, that there are different ways to do it. And we've got to get our pricing right so that you want to use it and not shy away from it. And actually, we have to figure out end-of-life solutions for the industry, which don't today exist in terms of recycling and return of things. So once we've done all that, then we can start to get the embodied carbon of our product all the way down. Lastly, the real horizon when you've done that is a third one. That says, how can I actually make a product that makes the environment better? Because if you see, the last two was about removing bad stuff or doing less negative stuff. Far more interesting, actually, in the long run, once you've done that, is could paint actually improve an environment? And the answer is it can. If light comes from the sun and bounces straight back into space, it doesn't add to the greenhouse effect. It's not stopped, actually. But what happens when it's absorbed and retransmitted, it can't get out. It stays inside the atmosphere and helps to warm it up. So if you could find a way to make more light, sunlight, and heat bounce straight back off buildings, we would achieve two things. Allow you to use less electricity, and we would have a positive impact on global warming. 5 degrees is the minimum amount your temperature of the wall will go down on the outside. 15% is what most people who use a lot of aircon would actually save on their energy bill if they use this product rather than a conventional product. And we priced it at the same price as a conventional product. So for us, that's how you do it. If we were all able to do the right thing, we could solve, bit by bit, the problems that we highlighted at the beginning.